All right, you can start now.
Oh, okay. Good day, everyone. My name is Ismaila Azeez, a front-end developer. My KD topic for today is Tailwind, a CSS framework.
I think you should put it on slideshow.
Yeah. That's what I want to do. Okay. Tailwind CSS framework. The table of contents. We talk about CSS. What are CSS frameworks? Tailwind CSS itself, how to install Tailwind. Then advantages of Tailwind CSS, its disadvantages, then a summary of all what we have talked about. So basically, CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It is a style sheets language used for describing the presentation of a document written in a markup language such as HTML. Along with HTML and JavaScript, CSS is part of the cornerstone technology of the World Wide Web. While HTML determines the structure of a website, JavaScript provides functionality and reactivity interaction with that website. CSS is what describes how a website looks, how it is rendered on a screen, a paper, a speech, or any other form of media. What are CSS frameworks? CSS frameworks are basically library of CSS that allow for easier, non-standard, compliant web design. And most of these CSS frameworks contains at least a grid. They provide more functional features, and most of them are JavaScript-based functions. They are mostly design-oriented and focused around interactive UI patterns. This detail differentiates CSS framework from other JavaScript frameworks. The CSS framework is prepped and ready to use CSS library. Basically, style sheets collection that makes the work of a developer very, very, very easy. In the sense that instead of starting from scratch, you are provided with basic tools to quickly create a user interface that you can just start with and tweak to your taste in a project. Also enable the creation of more standard compliant websites. Examples of these CSS frameworks are Bootstraps, Tailwind, Foundation, Blueprint, and Bomber. But for today, we'll be talking about Tailwind. So what is Tailwind CSS? Tailwind CSS is an open source CSS framework. The main feature of Tailwind is that, unlike other CSS frameworks like Bootstrap, it does not provide a series of predefined classes for elements such as buttons or tables. Instead, it is called a utility CSS. It creates a list of utility CSS classes that can be used to style each element by mixing and matching. Tailwind CSS is a utility-first CSS framework packed with classes like flex, padding top, for, text center, and empty for. This empty for means margin top for that can be composed to build end design directly in a project. A simple addition of these utility classes to an element adds styling to that element in an HTML document. For example, if we consider this picture here, in this element where we have hello world 1, this H1 element, all we just have to style to add, all you have to do to add styling to this hello world one is adding a class called BG Blue. This BG Blue means background blue. And what it does is add a blue background directly to this hello world one element. Well, another example is text underline here for this hello world 2. It adds text underline directly to the elements. For third example, we have background green added to this hello world 3 elements in this H1 element. Background is green, font width 400, makes the font bold. Text underline, it adds text underline to it. Installation of Tailwind CSS. There are various methods to install Tailwind CSS. Each each method is based on what we want to use it for. We can use the command line method, can use post CSS method, and definitely different JavaScript frameworks. This is JavaScript frameworks like React, Angular, React, Vue, various frameworks. They require different ways of installing Tailwind CSS. And also through CDN, Central Delivery Network, by just copying and pasting the Tailwind CSS link, CDN link at the top of our, at the link head of our HTML documents. For this presentation, I'll be explaining installation of Tailwind CSS to Angular projects, basically because we work with Angular in Bincom. For the first step to install Tailwind CSS in Angular projects, first is to open our command line. Then if you don't have an Angular project yet, you can do ng new projects. Or if you have Angular projects already, you can just cd into the projects. In this case now, they created a new project, then cd into the new projects. Then the third step to install Tailwind CSS, you do npm install -d Tailwind CSS post CSS auto prefixer. Then we do npx Tailwind CSS init, that is to initialize Tailwind CSS in that project. Then to configure our parts, it means we list every HTML and TypeScript documents of our Angular projects that we want CSS to work with. We list it here. HTML, CSS. Then we add the following: at Tailwind base, at Tailwind components, at Tailwind utilities to the style.css of our Angular projects. Then save everything. Then after that, we do ng-serve and start using our Tailwind in the Angular project. Advantages of Tailwind CSS: you have total control styling. It is fast in using CSS styling process. It is responsive and secure, and it provides additional features like Purge CSS. Disadvantages of Tailwind CSS: basically styling and HTML are mixed in the sense of like inline CSS styling, which is not best practice. Mostly for normally inline CSS is not best practice. It's best to use external CSS, that is having our CSS in the style of CSS and linking it to our HTML. But Tailwind now, it is directly written as like adding classes to our particular element we want to style, and this kind of looks like inline CSS, and therefore makes styling and HTML mixed and kind of bad for styling, but still. The next disadvantage is it takes time to learn. To learn it differs for each developer. And there's lack of important component. That is, since you are giving total control to styling, there's nothing like say, okay, you want to start using Tailwind CSS and this one is important. No, you have to be the one to decide, okay, if you want to use this or that, unlike other CSS frameworks like Bootstrap, where if you want to start, you'll be given a template. No, Tailwind doesn't give you a template to start styling. You have to decide what you want to use. Hence, there's no important components. And documentation clarity, yeah, kind of, well, this is basically a disadvantage for most frameworks. Reading their documentation at times it can be taxing and not clear enough. That's why most people have to use maybe guidance from other experienced developers or use other resources to learn it. In summary, Tailwind is the flexible CSS framework, and it makes styling of our projects easier, faster, and as open source, it keeps getting more and more features daily. Thank you, everyone. Hello.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I have one question actually.
Oh, okay.
And if there's any other person that has a question, they can ask as well. So my question is this Tailwind CSS.
Yeah.
What's the main difference with Bootstrap, which is also a CSS framework?
Come again, please.
What's the difference between this Tailwind and Bootstrap? What's the advantage of this as over Bootstrap?
Oh, okay. Like I said, unlike Bootstrap, where you are constrained to a particular type of, templates to build something like a pre-configured, let's say, styling for, for button now. To style a button, you are limited to certain amount of colors you can use. But in Tailwind, there's nothing like that. Tailwind, you have total control of how you want to style, whatever you want to style. So basically, that's it. In essence, Tailwind is more flexible to use than Bootstrap.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other person that has a question? If you have a question, let's ask.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.